Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Today's video, I want to kind of piggyback off of yesterday's video where I was talking about how this thing, which is the topic of the video, is what's going to fix, it's a fix for all these problems. And if you haven't watched that video, go back and view it. It was yesterday afternoon. Not bragging, but I think it was one of my better videos I've ever made. Talking about, and it's not what you think. It's not about who you're voting for. It's not about the stuff that you gather up. It's not about, how deep you build your bunker or anything. It's a simple age-old answer to all the problems that, or at least a lot of the problems that are being seen right now in the world today. And that's just learning to build unity with each other. Build community, figuring out that, which is what the elites don't want us to figure out, that there's strength in our numbers, and we got to come together and build that community. So go back and watch that video if you will. Also, if you would consider signing up to my locals channel, I produce content over there every day also, or just about every day. And my wife posts things on there. It's like its own separate social media. You don't have to pay to be part of it, but some of the content that I post over there, you do have to pay to see that. And so if you want to pay to see that, it's $3 a month. It's totally free speech. It's uncensored, and you can share all kinds of stuff and connect with other people over there too. Anyways, that scripture in Esther, I'm trying to remember the chapter and verse. It's like chapter 4 verses 14, I think, but I could be wrong, so please don't hold me to that. But it's a very famous verse, or at least the tail end of it. It says that you were born for such a time as this. Have you ever really thought about that? Bible says that the Father, he knew us in our womb. He knows every hair, how many hairs are on our head. He knows us. He knows us. There's an intimate knowing of us, an intimate relationship with us. Like we are his creation. We are in his image. His breath is in us. He breathed life into us. And that each one of us were born for such a time as this. Honestly, as much as there's so many amazing scriptures that just jump out at you and just when you read them, you're like, oh my goodness. How many times have you, this happens to me all the time. It's funny. And it was actually just not that long ago, I was running into my wife. I'm like, look at this. I've read this scripture so many times, and it just impacted me so different this time. Isn't that amazing? You can read a certain verse 100 times, 1,000 times in your life, and then all of a sudden you'll read it, and it's like it just jumps out of the page and hits you upside the face. You're like, oh my goodness, I never thought of that before. In my opinion, that scripture in Esther is one of the more powerful ones for us as people, as human beings living in this world. That we were born for such a time as this. And I think for all of us right now, because of all of this stuff that's happening, the obvious things, wars and rumors of wars and economic depression and pandemics and food and supply chains and invasion of illegals and, all those things are really bad, and they're happening. The sun's, burping out stuff all over us, and, the government's manipulating all these things, and AI and, all that. Okay. But then there's that moral, spiritual stuff that's going on, which everything I just mentioned is all connected to it. But the stuff that, ripping families apart, that this mockery of the Father and his scripture, and absolutely blasphemous types of things that's going on. It's absolute debauchery. It makes Sodom and Gomorrah look like, a nice, quaint little neighborhood. And we sit back and we see all this stuff, and especially for you that's around my age or older, and which is most of my audience. Maybe some of you young pups, this is all you've known, is this disgusting world that we live in. But for many of you, you can think back and think, well, you know, when I was younger, things weren't perfect by any means, but my word, they are not like they are now. And it's disgusting, and it's disheartening, and it's depressive at times to watch this nation, to watch people, to watch churches, to watch what many of you, I know you may think differently now, so just hold off for just a second, but many of you grew up thinking that, you know, it's a Christian nation, so many Christians and believers and stuff around us, good people, blah blah blah, and now you're watching these churches just, you know, they have like literally male strippers performing at their, you know, conferences and stuff. That did happen recently. It's disgusting. And so I think sometimes we're like, why? Like, why am I have to see this stuff? Why is this happening? Well, I can't explain that. I can't answer that. I wish I could. Other than it's Satan establishing or getting his last little dig in. You know, he knows his time is running short. He's doing everything he can to take everything and everyone with him. But for you and I, we were born for such a time as this. Think about that. What does that mean for you? If you look around and you see the world the way, the shape it's in, if you look around you and see what's going on in your purview, not what's going on in Washington, D.C. or your state capital or Ukraine or Israel or L.A. or New York or anything. What's going on right around you? What's happening in your world, your corner of the world? You were born for whatever's going on. You were born for such a time as that. That's, to me, I don't know about you, but to me, that's very impactful. It makes me kind of sit up and pay attention and think, well, if I'm born for such a time as this, then what do I need to be doing? You know, if I'm not doing anything, if I'm not making, at the very least, my life better, and I'm not talking about financially, I'm talking about, you know, that spiritual enrichment in your life. If I'm not growing and becoming, seeking his righteousness more, then what am I doing? What's my purpose? Because if I'm born for such a time as this and I'm not at least doing that, then something's off. And then I take that further out. My family, I'm born for such a time as this. I have a wife and I have children, and that's my responsibility. I'm born for such a time as this to take care of them. And then I have my community around me, and I see the hurt and the pain and the confusion and the fear and things falling apart. And I'm born for such a time as this. And I have physical capabilities. I have mental capabilities. I see and understand things. And so I'm born for this time that we're living in to jump in and to do what I can to make things better, or to make at least individual lives better, or bring those lives into the Father's kingdom. I was born for such a time as this, and so were you. You were born for such a time as this. So when all of this stuff, and it's a lot, I know you get tired of it. Many of you get so tired of just hearing about it. I do too. Trust me, I do. And part of me wants to say we probably shouldn't be hearing all this stuff, but on the other hand, I think if we don't hear it, our natural human instinct is to just become complacent. You know, if we see no, hear no, and think no evil kind of thing, speak no evil. And if we don't hear it, we don't see it, and we don't speak it or anything like that, then it doesn't exist. I think that's unfortunately too much of a human trait, and so we need to be aware of it. You know, maybe you're homeschooled. Your kids, maybe your kids are all grown up. You should still know what's going on in your local schools and how horrible it is, or your local government, or, you know, whatever, so that you can take a stand, so that you can shine your light into that darkness. We were born for such a time as this, folks. The world is falling apart. This nation is collapsing. It's falling apart. And honestly, and I hate to sound so pessimistic, I don't see that there's any way to save it. And I'm not talking spiritual salvation. I don't see that there's any way to save this nation, to stop what's happening and to reverse course and make this nation this once again, you know, great, you know, libertarian constitutional land of liberty. I don't see that happening. at least not without us completely hitting rock bottom first. And it's sad. It's sad to see what's going on. It's so heartbreaking to see what people are doing to children, and it's being allowed and it's being encouraged. You know, it's disgusting. The confusion and the mind, you know, mental games and stuff that's being played on people, this brainwashing that, you know, oh no, you're actually a girl and you can have that cut off, and then all of a sudden you're going to be a girl again. You know, it's sick. And I think for many of us believers and very traditional conservative minded people that we want to live out our beliefs, our lives, and be left alone, we have to realize we're born for such a time as this, and we have work to do. There's more work to do now than there's ever been before. You know, 50 years ago, when this nation was considered a Christian nation, I'm not saying it was, but it was considered that. It was considered a majority, you know, mostly, okay? There was work to do, but it was a lot easier. It's a lot harder now. It's way harder. It's way harder to wake people up and convince them. People have been brainwashed. Their DNA and stuff's been altered because of all the stuff that's been stuck in them. It's different. All the pills they're taking, the stuff they're spraying, the stuff they watch on internet. It's harder now. We are being persecuted more, not just verbally, but physically sometimes. Some people. I mean, there's been people that's been stuck in prison for months and months because of a political belief. But you and I are born for this time. We were placed here. The Father, in his infinite wisdom, decided that you right there that's listening right now, that you belonged in this time for some purpose. I don't know what it is. Maybe you don't know either, but there was a purpose for him putting you in this time. Now, maybe not everyone watching this video believes this. I suspect there's probably going to be a lot. Even maybe believers don't believe that. But to me, I do. I can't see that if his divine, infinite, omniscient, everything, his awesome powers, his awesome glory, if he couldn't do that, of putting us, if we were just randomly, you know, like taking a handful of seeds and just throwing them out there in the woods and seeing what sprouts, if that's how it is, and that, to me, that means that he's not quite the awesomeness that we think. He's handpicked each one of us, and we're placed here for a purpose and a reason. And this world is awful, and we need to find our purpose for being here. We need to find why he decided to put us in this awful, horrible, ungodly, just mess. Why? Because we're here for this time. This is our time, and we need to find that. And if it's something as simple as going next door to your neighbor and being a light to them, if it's encouraging them, showing them, you know, reading a scripture to them, bringing, maybe they've gotten to where they grew up in church or something, and they're sick of it. They don't have nothing to do with God, nothing to do with the Bible, nothing. Maybe your purpose is to bring them back. I don't know. Maybe your purpose is to help out some needy family that's really struggling right now. Maybe you got a good garden growing and everything, and then you find out that there's this family that they're struggling, and maybe your purpose, your whole reason that you exist is so that you can take them food, because you don't know what ends up happening later on down in their life because of you giving to them. I don't know what it is, but I do know that I believe that we, each one of you listening right now, no matter how bad your life is, no matter how much in the dumps you are, maybe your health is awful, maybe you're literally dying, and I don't mean that in any kind of sarcastic way. I mean, there may be people watching right now that's been given a limited time to live, that they're sitting there, laying there in bed, waiting to die. You have a purpose. You are here for such a time as this. And we all need to be praying and need to find that. and need to be working towards that goal of achieving that, figuring out why we're here and what work the Father has. And maybe it is bringing people together. Maybe it is, starting a little community, starting a little mag group, starting a little tribe. Maybe it is volunteering with your local fire department. I got to get that in there because some of you, it just irritates you when I talk about it. And I don't care because I enjoy it. It's the things that are happening in this area because of what we're doing is, anyways, I talk about that over on Locals today. You should go watch the Locals video I put up today. Whatever it is, you need to find that. And I believe, this is just my belief, I believe that if you're doing that, you're doing the Father's work. You're doing that kingdom work, whatever that is for you. And that because you're following in his footsteps, in his guidance, that you have a level of blessing and protection over you than if you're working outside of his will. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be great and easy. In fact, it's going to be the opposite. You're probably going to go through some serious trials and tribulations because of that. But you will be within his will. And there's no better place for us to be in this world than following in the Father's will, right? No matter how bad things are, no matter how destitute we are, no matter how much pain we're in, there's no better place for us to be than in his will. And so remember, each one of you were born for such a time as this. And no matter how bad things are in the world, no matter how horrible the president we have, or the next president, or the wars, or the nukes, or the disease, or the bugs, or the illegals, or the dollar, or the sun, or whatever. I mean, I could sit there and list things off for hours probably. No matter what. None of it is as big as our Creator, the Most High. And he has a plan for each one of us, and he has a purpose for each one of us, and we're here for that purpose, and we need to find our little groove within his will. And when we do that, all this other stuff that's going on, all these other things that are against us is nothing. It's piddly. It's nothing compared to what he is and what he can do. And so figure out why you're here. What time that you're here for. And we need to be doing that. And we need to be working towards that. That's the goals that we should be working towards, regardless of what it is. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.